All right, boys and girls, trying something different tonight because we're chasing the algo. And we're going to talk about that algo tonight. We're gonna throw some AI and tech in this episode and some political subjects and see if we can piss off or encourage people to watch more or to run away.
So to set the context, we've been going back and forth for months on the direction of the show. We've talked about it quite a bit while we've been on the show, and we're trying to figure out what it is we want to do. So Faz and I, and even Zorro, he hasn't made it in yet tonight, but we all have such a ridiculously wide variety of things that we love to talk about. And we keep kind of niching ourselves. And as Faz mentioned, we started kind of with crypto and Gala, but that ran its course and it's bye-bye now. So we're like, all right, well, where do we want to take the direction of the show? And I wouldn't call it chasing algos. I would call it finding a way to get our show out to as many people as possible without forcing subjects, right? We don't want to force ourselves to talk about certain things. He and I, just like we were late tonight, we yip, we just talk. And that's why Faz has always said it's a show like a couple of people standing around a water cooler having a conversation, or sitting by a bonfire with a beer and having a conversation. That's what we always wanted this to be like. So that's kind of where we are with the content on the show. And we've asked a couple of times to everyone, hey, what do you like? What do you want to see? And we don't get feedback. So we just kind of go, all right, well, what's on our mind? What do we feel like talking about this week? You know, we do want to make it something unique, no doubt.
Well, you know, if Henry Ford would have asked people if what they would have wanted, they would have wanted a faster horse.
We did Zorro dirty. We forgot to send him the link.
We're like, where'd he go? Why is he not here? That all right, jerk.
Hold on, Zorro. Let me copy and paste this thing.
All right. Well, while he's doing that, so
I feel terrible now.
I created the Faz Politics show. Be this one. That one, as an experiment to see if more people were interested in that than AI and tech. And lo and behold, they were. We got a bucket load of people, mostly from Twitter, actually, that are interested in hearing about political subjects. But I like tech subjects too. And political stuff can get rather annoying and divisive and stuff. Zorro was a DEI hire. Yep. Speaking of politics, I think so. We didn't want to do politics for a long time, and I'm gonna point the finger to this person right here a lot because you're a little resistant.
I literally, I'm not making that up. I don't do politics anymore.
But,
I just, it
okay, here's how this works. If you have two people in a room, you have two people. If you have three people in a room, you have politics, okay? Everybody, when there's two people in the room, everybody knows what's going on. If there's three people in the room, all of a sudden you have to, you can team up and stuff like that. Well, there's more than just two people in our room. There's a lot of people. And any opinion you have is technically politics. I mean, even when we talk about moon landing, flat earth, whatever, there's politics in there. It's not just science. It's politics because there's a certain reason you believe and a certain way that you believe and so on. So anyway, it's going to be an experiment because I think more people want to hear about it, but they're not going to ask for it. Like I said, if people were asked their opinion, they'd ask for a faster horse. Here, let's do that. So we're all bigger. I usually like to put Zorro in the middle because
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to switch me and Mr. Titan.
You've got a bright light there, Mr. Zorro. You're all washed out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to FazRadio. Tonight is politics as well.
Welcome to Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
All Faz all the time.
8-bit Tendies suggested that you were a DEI hire for the show, and he'd already gotten fired.
Yeah, that's right.
The majority of the time that Big Tender says he don't know what the hell he's talking about.
All right. Starting with the sauciness.
But
with the salt already.
I know he loved me a lot. That's why he mentioned
me a lot. You're really bright, Mr. Zorro.
Yeah, I wasn't joking. Every time you lean forward, you get totally washed out.
It's because the screen is white. See, I actually have whenever I like Google anything to argue with Titan about it, that happens. My face gets illuminated.
Well, you guys are like the big-headed people. I'm nice. I'm set back a little bit. Every time I go to try and cut a short, I have to cut half of one of your heads off.
All right.
Make it fit.
That's as far back as it will go.
When you said as soon as you got back into your house, you were going to make a nice little studio there and get this all fixed. Where's the studio?
Well, this is the studio. It's just not complete.
My studio is complete. It's been complete for months.
I know. You have been
hours of effort into this.
So my last year has been very busy. Did I mention what's going on in my life recently?
Hours of effort into this. Zorro's listening to the show on delay as well.
He's okay.
And just sharing the link.
Okay. So I've had a lot of things going on recently, and actually I'm going to get married soon. And so right after I moved back into this house, because the tree had hit the house, and we had to go live in another house for about 9 months while they repaired the hell out of this one. They replaced like half the roof in this house and the whole master bedroom. And of course, water damage went into the living room. So that took like 9 months to repair, 11 months, I think, to repair. And so now I'm getting married. So that's still, I'm planning all these other things. I don't have time to get to all this stuff, but I do have a black curtain up, which absorbs, sound. I want to replace this desk with a built-in desk that I have a friend coming over to help with. And then I want to have more sound baffles after that. We do have a nice microphone, though.
I'm still jealous of that microphone. I'm going to get that Shure microphone here very soon. Sure, very
sure.
Sure.
Are you sure? Are you sure you're going to get it?
Should we get the same one?
I'm going to get the...
it is kind of the logo microphone, so why wouldn't you?
Well, you can. I'm getting the MV7 Plus.
I would like to have the same one, but different color.
I don't know. Well, okay. Yeah, sure. Whatever floats your boat or whatever. Anyway.
Get a nice studio.
So we're going to do some politics tonight, too. That's what this is up in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah.
We do have regular FazRadio, which I think that's, probably better with the black text over me. If this was Mr. Zorro, the white text would be better.
Typical Faz, me.
Anyway, so I wanted to talk about, I want to do some more like recent stuff. And in the age of Trump, there's news every day. Anyway, here, I'll keep my hands here so you can see them. Trump is doing stuff every single day. Well, that's good, I guess. He ran on that. And that's going to cause two things to happen. One, that's going to cause all the conservative people, well, some of the conservative people, to be like, all right, he's doing stuff for us. It's going to cause all the liberals to flip out. I'm not exactly flipping out, even though I'm a bit liberal. I'm just kind of looking and seeing the destruction going on. Because remember, Trump has run on the destruction. We're doing politics, so that should be this one. Trump is running literally on knocking down things. And not always replacing them. So one of the things that he has knocked down is, he froze all federal government jobs. He doesn't want any more people to be hired for now, apparently. Despite a lot of jobs, there's a number of jobs that are sorely understaffed, but that's okay. He wants to save money. He wants the understaffedness to happen. And then when you have understaffedness going on, there's consequences. Like, I don't know, if you understaff air traffic controllers, all of a sudden there's not enough of them to handle planes flying around, and some of them might go down. One went down a couple days ago, as well as a military helicopter. And another one just went down about an hour ago in Philadelphia.
That's very sad, man. It's very sad to hear that.
Now, that could be due to mechanical difficulties on the plane, which that would be another reason you'd want more funding for our air traffic, our air transportation. You want the planes to be in perfectly good shape. And
that's for the company, though. That has nothing to do with federal funding.
Okay, you realize when these things fall out of the fucking sky, they fall on houses and people, right? Yeah, that's nice to say it's up for the company.
But how do we know there's a mechanical issue?
Well, I think he was talking about a hypothetical here.
Right, but if we talk about airplanes, right? Airplanes right now have the most sophisticated flight equipment right now, especially here.
That's because our regulations demand that.
Right.
It's not because they just chose it on their own.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So one of my hobbies, actually, unfortunately, is I like researching into air crashes. There's a great YouTube show called Mentor Pilot by this pilot trainer who digs heavily into every single plane crash you can think of. He goes through all of the paperwork. And with his experience as a pilot trainer, he explains why they happened, and then what changed afterward. And as a result, I've learned a lot about the process of what happens after a plane crash. You can say, yeah, well, that's totally up to the company to have to make sure that those planes are upgraded. Yeah, they are. It is up to the company, and they are required to pay a certain amount of money to make sure the planes are up to snuff. But it's the feds that make the standards to say you must do A, B, and C, or else you may not fly. The company must pony up that money. Those you want pretty much all across the United States. Because if you have one plane crash, you notice if they ever find a problem with, I don't know, like the 737 MAX, one of them crashed in Ethiopia, another one crashed somewhere else. They grounded all the 737 MAXs until they found out what the fuck happened. Turned out to be something wrong with the airplane, which is a good idea. They grounded all the airplanes, but they also changed the standard. They changed the standards. They revisited them and said, why did these pilots fall prey to this? Why did they not discover these things? And so that's a good reason to have the federal government regulating plane flights. And you do not want to cut money from that.
If air travel has been safe pretty much since the 70s, with the regulations that they have, what are new regulations going to do to make it safer? Because it's the regulations that they have worked for 30, 40, 50 years, and suddenly they just don't work. I'm not buying that.
No, but they're going to change the regulation just because what's happening right now. First, they have to do the investigation. What happened? It looks pretty clear to me, at least to me, that whatever is going on with those airplanes right now, there's a big, huge human error in there. If we have been using these technologies and they keep upgrading, and we haven't been very safe the last 50 years. What is going on right now is out of the normal, totally. I mean, they really have to prove that something went wrong with these airplanes as far as the mechanical parts.
Okay, so a couple things that we need to be aware of. One, have you looked inside the cockpit of a commercial passenger airplane? It is not like the cockpit of your car. In your car, you have a steering wheel, you have a brake, and you have a few dials, which actually there's only two of them that are important, really, and that's the fuel gauge and the speed indicator. Now, there's other things like battery and oil and stuff. Those aren't as important, because if the car, something happens to the battery or oil, the car is just going to come slowly to a stop. It's not going to drop on houses of lots of people. Airplanes have 50 to 100 indicators on them. They are not automated in the way that we might think they are. Pilots have a fucking manual like this thick that they have to do. If you like rituals, if you like dit checking things, fly an airplane, because you have a book and you must go through you got to go through 1 billion steps to launch that airplane, to fly it, and to land it. And while it is possible to automate all those things completely, it takes away the human ability to react to all situations. Our autopilot can keep a plane flying level, but it's not going to react to all situations. And so flying airplanes is really complicated. And it turns out that they need a lot of procedures. Okay, press this button before you press that button. Okay, now do this. Okay, now when you fly when you fly to land the plane, you need to go around to the right, not to the left, and so on and so on. Now, it's your premise where you said, well, we've been doing just fine for 50 years until, well, the way we've been doing fine is literally after every single plane crash or failed inspection, the rules get added to or changed. That is their standard, is to literally update the standard. And as a result, we've gotten it to hum really well. And some of these things are, if planes have problems functioning, you start finding out that maintenance problems were the issue. It's like, oh my God, this they should have replaced the jack screw in this airplane, 100,000 miles ago, and it wound up wearing out, and then the plane couldn't maintain its horizontal attitude, and then it crashed. So there's a lot of maintenance standards. There's a lot of maintenance procedures. It's not just flying, it's how you take care of the aircraft. So I want to make it clear that aviation is not about static standards. It's about always improving and always doing better. So it's not a bad thing that once they investigate a crash, they go, okay, no more fucking helicopters flying near the airport. Why the fuck was that even happening? Well, that's happening because there's less planes probably flying around the airport when the helicopters first started flying around there. But now they had a perfect situation where the plane didn't see the helicopter didn't see the plane, and they hit each other. So that's what I'm saying about that. That's my retort to things were just fine for 50 years. Well, now we got to change some things. And
what about the control tower?
So I'd heard some conflicting things. One, they said there weren't enough people in the control tower, that one person was managing both the helicopter and the airplane. But then I read something else saying, well, you kind of want that. You want the same person knowing about the helicopter and the airplane, because he doesn't need to communicate with somebody across the room. Hey, where's your plane going? My helicopter's going here. They would just know. They're so close to each other that one person was managing them and keeping track. And in fact, they get alarms inside the air traffic control tower long before planes hit each other. In fact, the air traffic controller saw an alarm saying this helicopter is going to hit this airplane. And he said, hey, do you see this guy? And the helicopter goes, yeah, I do. Okay, well, in that case, he could shut off the alarm because that guy has seen the airplane. It turns out he might have seen the wrong airplane and thought he saw the correct one. Or sorry, he might have saw the wrong one. Maybe it was out of his scope of vision. I've also heard that
if we're talking about a regular helicopter, but we're talking about
it's a Black Hawk helicopter. So a Black Hawk helicopter, you have about a 30-degree angle apparently from the front.
And I'm pretty sure that the pilots for those type of aircraft have to be pretty, very high skilled person.
Black Hawk helicopters?
I guess so.
I would say that they would probably need to be. Well, helicopters are a bitch to fly. They're
right.
they've got their own set of.
We're not talking. We're not talking here about just a simple. We know without not talking bad to, with all respect to all the pilots, but this is not just a regular pilot for a commercial airline who was flying that helicopter. I'm guessing we're talking about more high skill levels person for that.
I wouldn't. So it's hard to speculate. The military doesn't always have higher skill levels. If you had a commercial airline pilot that's been flying for 20 years, they're going to know how to fly commercial airplanes in and out of airports. They're going to know all the rules and so on. Military is different. Military has different rules, and they might be able to relax some rules that the commercial people can't. They're also flying radically different kind of equipment. In the case of the Black Hawk helicopter, they apparently needed 4 people in that helicopter to see all the way around it, and they had 3. And so it might be that one person was missing that would have been able to see that airplane, and the pilots may not have been able to see it.
Well, I had seen and I don't know if it's true yet because we don't have a lot of information, but people were posting, I guess, videos that they themselves took of these Black Hawk helicopters, like in the days preceding that, were running exercises all around the same area. So the narrative there was, well, they were running night exercises this time and something went sideways. I don't know how true that is or not. We still don't have enough information, but that would make sense if that is true, that they were running exercises and someone just screwed up.
Well, it's already come out that the Black Hawk helicopter was 100 feet higher than it should have been. Now, apparently something, and so if it's higher than it should have been, that's put it in the same place as the airplane that was trying to land. The airplane that was trying to land, they usually have that shit programmed in, and they set it up, and the airplane just flies itself all the way to landing. The pilots kind of monitor it and make sure everything's going smoothly. So the plane is completely not at fault from as far as we can tell, as far as I can tell. But it seems the Black Hawk helicopter was not flying according to the flight plan that it was supposed to adhere to. Plus, apparently it came from Bowling Air Force Base. Apparently they had this kind of understanding where they could just like cut across the river anytime they want, as long as they stayed within a certain box. And they were way outside that box. So it was a little bit sketchy to begin with, but now what do you call it? The rails, or the what do you call it when it's it was getting it way more sketchy, and they were doing something somewhat dangerous to begin with, and maybe it became so routine to do something extremely dangerous that it didn't even occur to them that they could be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It cost a lot of people their lives, unfortunately. And
everybody in that plane, yeah.
So I would think, because I'm not an air traffic controller, I've done the same. I'm not like in depth like you are, but I've watched, the National Geographic special or whatever that they put on those channels in the past where they show you what it's like. And I would imagine that they would have had an altitude on that helicopter on their screen, along with the plane's altitude. I can't fathom air traffic controllers not knowing the altitude of different airplanes.
So they do.
Well, and that's my point is that if air traffic control was paying attention, I don't know, and it noticed that the two of them were kind of headed for that same altitude, why wasn't something transmitted either to the airplane?
It was.
Or to the Black Hawk that said
it was. So
and then why didn't the airplane move?
So, well, first of all, the airplane wasn't going to move because it had its pre-programmed. It was in the process of landing. If it would have moved, it would have had to abandon the landing. Okay.
That's okay. You circle back around and do it again.
Yeah. Let me finish. The air traffic, and this is you're saying why didn't, and this is what I'm trying to kind of train you out of. Don't say why didn't. You should say something more like, could it be that? Because it turns out that the air traffic controller did see that they were going to collide. They have their computers project out the path of all the planes, and it knows which way the planes are going, and it can project that they will hit within so many feet. So the air traffic controller saw that they were going to collide with the other plane within like 20 seconds or 10 seconds, and said, "Hey, be aware of this other plane here." And the Black Hawk helicopter said, "Hey, can we do visual flight rules?" Which means we're pretty aware of what's going on. Can we just navigate on our own without you telling us? The air traffic controller had told them that they were going to hit the other plane. They said, "Watch out for this guy," and they went, "Yep, we see him." Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing. It's the exact words are slightly different, but they basically communicated, "Yep, we see him. We're not going to hit him. We'll turn our helicopter if necessary." And so the air traffic controller was, satisfied. In fact, they even said, "Do we have permission to fly according to visual flight rules?" Air traffic controller said, "Yes, be aware of this other plane." They said, "Yep, we see him." That was all that was needed. Now, what happened, though, is the Black Hawk helicopter continued going the same direction and speed that it was. It never deviated from its course, from what we can tell so far. I mean, in any sort of official investigation can contradict what I say, and listen to them. But if you look at the videos and you hear what they're saying so far, the helicopter did not budge, and it just ran right into the plane. They were warned. And okay, so the next step is that warning not good enough? Or is it good enough? I don't know. I mean, you have to listen to the air traffic control. You have to do what they tell you. And if you don't, people will die. And that's what happened. I was on a plane just 2 weeks ago landing in Texas. And I have the Flight Radar 24 application on my phone, which I think is awesome. And I had network access on the plane. I had Wi-Fi. And I was following my plane on Flight Radar 24. And I was following the other planes. And I saw another plane coming right at mine. And I could see in this app that this plane was going to hit mine. So I clicked on each one to see their altitude. They're 1,000 feet different from each other. There's actually certain rules that say you can only be so close to airplanes at certain places. So I saw there's 1,000 feet underneath of us. And I was like, okay, we're not going to hit it. It's not going to hit us. And it flew underneath us, that kind of thing. Air traffic controllers would know if that thing was climbing. They give planes permission. You may climb, you may descend. Planes don't decide which altitude to be on their own. They get told. Not so with Black Hawk helicopters. They're given. They were given a box that they could be in. You could be all the way up to 200 feet. The Black Hawk helicopter was at 300 feet.
It is very sad because now we all the evidence of videos from people and from everywhere where that happened, and they're looking into these videos, and you can literally see the helicopter going straight to the airplane.
It was like it didn't see it. It's just
right,
like,
it's like, yeah, it's nothing there, but it's a big gap of communication between the control tower and the pilots there, probably.
Well, General Kazin here.
I was just going to click that when Zorro stopped talking.
So General Kazin says, what if it was done intentionally? And so I personally think that's highly unlikely. But yeah, so many people could do things intentionally. Yeah. I guess they could have done it intentionally by, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not known very well as a conspiracy theorist, right? But
no, you're not known as one.
Back last year, it was what, mid-year? And I'm terrible. You guys all know I'm terrible with this. I'm guessing mid-year when Boeing had all those problems where planes were just, or was it Boeing that where all those planes crashed? They kept crashing and it was the maintenance issues and all that. Was that who that was?
I think you might be talking about the 737 MAX, which was a few years ago.
That's the Boeing. Yeah. Well, they had all these plane crashes and I had thought, I'm like, this is too coincidental. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, like 6 planes go down because of these maintenance issues. And I'm thinking along those lines, like the general was saying, hey, is this some kind of weird planned thing? Because I can see it happening once in a while, right? Because things happen. But there was probably 3, 4, 5 like major airline disasters. Remember the door came off of the one mid-flight and all this. It was all like right in a row. And I'm like, that's a little too much to be coincidental. And I always wondered what the reasoning behind that might be. But they blamed it on just terrible maintenance.
Okay. So remember, I told you that they follow a lot of procedures. What plane crashes are one of the most investigated things on the planet, most studied things on the planet. When a plane goes down, because they can be so destructive and kill so many people on the ground and on the plane, they investigate the fuck out of those things. And so they have all these procedures. The moment a pilot deviates from his procedure because it's well practiced for every model of plane. You also know if they practice everything in the procedure, things will go right. And if they don't, it's a maintenance issue or it's a design flaw. In the case of the 737 MAX, it was a design flaw. It was not a maintenance issue. The plane was not built. It was not planned correctly. And so, but with the door plug thing, that was a maintenance issue. They didn't have screws in the door frame, and the thing just blew out.
That's crazy. They maintain these things so well. I remember a bunch of years back when I did all that traveling, when I was still in the financial world, even then, that was like 20, I don't know, maybe 2008, 2009-ish. I was literally flying 2-3 planes a week, 50 weeks a year. And I would get on planes that still had the ashtrays. So you knew that plane was already 30 plus years old. And so they take immaculate care of these things. And I'm wondering if a lot of these accidents or problems that are happening is they're just not doing the maintenance properly anymore because of the cost or whatever the case may be. But I'm starting to think that might be the root of a lot of these problems. I never felt unsafe, and I flew tens, if not hundreds of thousands of miles in my lifetime. And I never once felt unsafe on an airplane.
So the maintenance of an airplane is not the same as the maintenance for a car. When you go and get your car maintained, they check your fluids, they check a few things, and then they ask you, have you heard any squeaks, anything like that. Cars, of course, whenever they have problems, they just slow down to a stop, and generally you're fine. Generally,
stop and nobody
maintenance is a lot easier. There are a bazillion parts on an airplane, and each one of them has rules about how long they last, and when they're to be replaced. And
sounds like a rule for a husband that a wife might have too.
Okay.
What?
How long they last and when they get replaced.
Anyway, yeah, that's okay.
Titan
Anyway, so maintenance on an airplane is very, 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 very regimented. And again, they know the age of everything that's flying. They know how many flying hours just about every major part on that thing has. They know how many times this plane has been pressurized. In fact, they have a rating, because this thing's like a balloon. It pressurizes and depressurizes several times a day. after so many pressurizations and depressurizations, they retire the plane because the balloon's going to pop because of stress on the metal. So the maintenance problems come because people taking shortcuts, and they falsify records. They say this one's done, and they get a lot of pressure from their bosses to do more with less, or with less people, with less money. And if you have something, and I was bringing this back to Trump, if Trump goes and fires a bunch of people and they have less people, yet Trump then demands the top level from them, you're going to have people falsifying records. You're going to have people that play fast and loose with flying the plane. They're like, okay, we're going in too fast, but it's okay. The plane's rated for this. You start pushing the envelope, more problems are going to happen. So,
will you think that AI is affecting this technology?
Oh, I don't think AI is I don't know a lot about it, but I would bet that AI is not integrated into planes enough to automatically take care of everything on them. I mean, I know that there's some experiments and maybe some things going on where AI is something that can be consulted when there's a problem, but I don't think it's managing things in the airplane right now.
You want to hear something interesting about airplanes?
Sure.
I want.
So when I first got out of the service, I bounced to about 5 different jobs because, of course, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of those jobs was one of my favorite jobs. I was a tugboat dispatcher. And it was for all the Great Lakes. We dispatched here from Cleveland. And one of the other dispatchers, who I worked night shift most of the time, and he would come in the morning, his name was Marius. And Marius used to be an airline pilot, a commercial airline pilot. And we would just, yip about interesting stuff. It's kind of like the three of us. We just have so many weird facts in our heads and so many interests. And we're talking about this. And I had asked him, I said, what's with the deal now? Because back then they had all these airplanes that were all silver. I said, a lot of these airplanes, I said, they don't make them look nice anymore. They used to be all painted real good and everything. And he was a pilot in Germany. And with his big, thick German accent, he said, well, no, it is not very good to paint planes. It adds too much weight to a plane. I said, how much weight could a freaking paint job add to a plane? He goes, almost a ton, at least half a ton, if not almost. And I said, shut your mouth. A layer of paint adds almost, 2,000 pounds. And the drag and the maintenance and the extra fuel and everything else, I couldn't believe that. Just painting an airplane can add almost a ton to its weight and cause more maintenance. So there's a lot of things that go into that as well, because that affects the way the plane flies. Apparently, I got an education back then.
Well, I mean, when you paint a room in your house, you have to buy gallons of paint, and those gallons of paint are heavy.
But you don't think like a ton, 12, 14, 1,600 pounds.
And it's drag, especially if this paint is well, I mean, you'd hope it would be glossy and stuff like that. Paint would also offer a little bit of protection too. I mean, from rocks and things flying through the air. Not geese, though. You're kind of screwed if geese hit your plane.
That one that landed in New York, remember? They made the movie about it with Tom Hanks. The birds hit the damn plane, and that's what caused it to crash.
That's called a bird strike. In fact, they had it's called a double bird strike because both engines were taken out. That happened in Korea just like a couple weeks ago. A double bird strike, and that plane went down, exploded. Nobody lived. So the very fact that the one on the Hudson survived did great.
That's a great question, Demology. I don't know. I would imagine that's probably why they did that too. Yeah.
So I can tell you what. So with the paint for the rockets for the shuttles, they at like the first launch, I think, of the space shuttle, they painted the big fuel tank, big middle fuel tank white, and it turned out to be so expensive to paint that thing because they throw it away when they're done with it, that they stopped painting it. And that's why it was like that rusty red, because that's just rusty metal. Until they retired the shuttles, they never painted those things. But they did spray some like foam insulation on it because these fuel tanks get very cold when you put all this pressurized fuel in there, and the insulation is like pumice. And when they were launching the Columbia that one time, the insulation broke off while they were launching, hit the shuttle, put a hole in it. They didn't know it for 2.5 weeks. Then they went to land, and hot superheated air got into the shuttle while they were coming down through the atmosphere, and well, boom.
So an interesting thing, M. Ice talks about this, that, we were part of Secretary of Defense. One of his childhood friends used to fly the Secretary of Defense around conflict zones. When we were there, when we were at the Pentagon, they had put out a call for people to be a driver. Didn't you apply for that, Faz? I think you applied.
No, you knew somebody that did, though.
There was somebody there at our comm center did apply.
Yeah, I would say he is the roommate of your apartment.
Oh yeah, John. Yeah. But it was weird. They would just like put the call out for volunteers for that stuff, and people would jump on it left and right. We used to go load his gear every morning. Yeah, I'll have to take you guys on a tour and show you my signs, all my Pentagon signs that we talked about. That it's really cool.
Ones that you admitted
I did not steal them. I took them out of the garbage. They were being thrown away. I was helping them by recycling it. That's what I'm going with. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh, yeah. I helped unload garbage too. In fact, they put all their garbage in the incinerator, because they didn't want anything to be taken, because lest it might have top secret materials in it or something like that.
I was just going to say, and to wrap that back around to finish my thought, I just thought that was a cool thing to say. There are a lot of private pilots, apparently, that work directly with contracting with the government for that stuff. So for all we know, there, as Zorro mentioned earlier, there maybe those Blackhawks were not flown by the military. We don't even know that at this point.
Yeah, we don't.
They don't know about that. Yeah, we don't know. I think it's still too much to investigate. But come on, man.
It'll take like a year, 6 months to a year for them to find out, because they're going to go pull they're going to grab every part of both the helicopter and the plane that they can find. They're going to rebuild them somewhere, and then they're going to see what's all bent up. They're going to be like, oh, there's a big part of the plane that looks like a big gash in it. Oh, look, there's paint from the airplane on this propeller blade and, helicopter blade. They're going to be like, oh, it hit it from this angle. And there's a number of, like I said, you should watch Mentor Pilot on YouTube. They go through all the reconstructions. They get radar data, black box data, personal stories, movies, photos, everything. They can tell you the angle of each aircraft as they hit. They're going to know everything about these two planes, because they both have black boxes. These two aircraft. They have their procedures. Are you on the phone, sir? Are you texting people?
Whatever you said turned on my Android phone. I have an iPhone and an Android. It turned.
Hey, Google.
It turned it on, and it was transcribing like literally everything that you were saying. It lit up and started going bonkers, and so I grabbed it.
Hey, Google, call 911.
No.
You're gonna get me thrown in jail.
You had that AI listening to you 24/7, Titan?
No, well, it does it on its own. It had opened up GEMINI. I'm not going to say it, and it started transcribing everything, and I couldn't get it to stop. It was going absolutely bonkers. I don't know what word in there you would have said that triggered it, but something did.
Anyway, because Zorro has been getting on us about these taking so long, we should probably move on to our second subject.
But we have to say, is that your new camera that you're sporting there, Zorro?
Yes.
Looks fantastic.
But I still have to. I just put it like right away.
Yeah, that light is still washing you out pretty good, but you look fantastic.
Well, it helps if he didn't wear a white shirt.
Wear black shirt. I wear a black shirt every week on this show.
I did wear a white hat though.
Next
Mentor pilot. What's this guy say? Something blah blah blah. Somebody's buddies with mentor pilot here.
Oh, there you go.
Rio. So yeah, this guy is detailed with his stuff. He goes into everything, and of course he's a pilot trainer himself, so he knows all the things that can go wrong. He has pretty good ones. And of course he's done 9/11 and Miracle on the Hudson and stuff like that. So he's gone, and he will tell you what they were doing, what they were thinking. He talks a lot about mental load of pilots. So it's one thing when you're driving and arguing with your spouse or your kids when you're driving. You can't pay attention to your speed, you get pulled over. Did I do that?
Go, you blew up all our phones, Faz. I don't know what you're doing here, but you're killing us all.
Sorry. Okay. Anyway, so something that Mentor Pilot has shown me that is very important to pilots is mental workload. So because you have so many switches and dials and procedures and pathways and regulations, they cannot. You won't see pilots just shooting the breeze while they're flying, especially with takeoff and landing. They're following procedures, and if they didn't, they would forget something. The mental load is so much that you cannot literally concentrate on stuff. Now it happens, and what's nice about these episodes that he does is he shows how the mental load increases. He's like, okay, they've taken off, and this engine number 2 is out, and they have an oil pressure is gone. Now they have a fire in the hold, stuff like that. And the mental load's going up and up. After a certain bit of mental load, this happens to everybody, firefighters, police, whatever, you start ignoring information that's really important. Like, I don't know, your altitude, or, talking to, the air traffic controller and stuff. And so pilots will get in a bad situation. You'll see them not doing certain things. And if you look at all the stuff that's going on, they'll be like, well, the mental load was too high. There's no way. And so it wasn't really pilot errors. Pilots aren't designed to handle 5 simultaneous errors at a time. They can handle 1, 2, maybe 3, but that's it. I mean,
that's why there's 2 pilots, right?
So the way that works is you have a pilot flying and a pilot monitoring. It's either the captain flying or the first officer flying, and the other one's just keeping track, and maybe they're talking to the air traffic controller. They're looking at a bunch of dials, and so you'd think that was okay. But so the pilot flying is doing the flying, but if he doesn't understand if his aircraft has done something wrong, the other one's got to figure it out in a hurry. And if he can't figure it out in a hurry, now you have a big problem. The person who's flying doesn't have the information he needs, and the other person's looking around. And if you have 3 things going on, they don't know which one's the one that they got to solve first. And then, of course, the plane might go down because they solved the wrong one first. So they actually have manuals to where if the fuel light goes on, they pull open a manual, they look at the manual, and it tells them the order to look things up. Okay, do this first, do that second, do that third. And they have found that when people do things out of order, the plane crashes. And so the companies that make these planes have to tell you the exact order to do everything. And if not, they get in big trouble.
I do have to point out, Faz, that you are being a very bad and very naughty liberal today.
Oh?
You referred to every air traffic controller and pilot as a he. You should be giving some credit as the liberal that you are. You should be giving credit and not assuming that all air traffic controllers and pilots are male.
That's a good point. Maybe we should start using they a bit more. That way we don't really assume what they are. Maybe that's a more respectful way to do it. I've been referring to you as a he all this time. I could have been wrong.
We can fix that. Hang on.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're not monetized. So anyway, to get back to what I was saying, there's a lot of things you got to do in a certain order really quick. And if you don't, the plane's going to crash. And sometimes you just don't have enough time to look through the book, figure it all out fast enough. If shit starts breaking too fast, And that could be something breaks every 30 seconds. You've got to stop what you're doing, recalibrate, do something else. It's a lot of mental load, and people don't realize how much mental load pilots have.
No, I can imagine. I totally, I'm trying to keep it a little light because we're kind of getting a little dark in this thing about all these crashes and stuff. But it really, it is a lot. I mean, even driving a car can really overwhelm, especially in these newer cars. I'm sounding like a real old man here, but these newer cars, man, this cockpit in these new cars, there's 45,000 things to look at, and that doesn't even hold a candle to an airplane, like you were talking about a little bit earlier. So I totally get that part. I totally understand it. And I totally get it when mistakes happen too, because that is a lot. I'll agree with you there.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and I'm trying to wrap this up with the airplane thing, but I'm curious. Do you think?
Yes.
Do you? You're not exactly a MAGA person, but you're I would say you're a conservative anarchist. Do you think that it was because that this plane crashed in the Potomac because of DEI hiring policies?
I don't know. Could it be? Sure. Because they're showing more and more that these hirings of people to try and affect this DEI policy were maybe not the most qualified people for whatever role that they were in.
Well, remember, I told you that they have strict standards. Are you saying that their qualification standards, the test that they have to take to be an air traffic controller, was less than other people?
Yes.
It's not.
And let me give you an example.
It's the same test.
Let me give you an example. My brother had wanted to be a paramedic his whole life. Loved it. That's what he wanted as a career. Looked forward to it. Spent 2 years going to school, another year doing the field work and going through all the stuff. And then he went to go get hired. And you had to go through a physical test and you had to go through a written test. And there was 40 something, if I'm remembering correctly, there was like 40 something people in this. And he finished in the top 10 in both the physical and the written. And they were hiring 12 people. And he did not get hired. Why? Because the city had requirements for how many people that were non-white males that they had to hire. So he didn't make the cut, even though he was in the top 10 for both of those. He wasn't hired. And people who qualified far lower in both of those categories were hired on. Whether it was the color of their skin, their nationality, whatever it was. And it's not DEI. It wasn't DEI back then. It was something else. I forget what they called it. But those policies are complete bullshit. If you work hard and you do well, you should be rewarded with that role. And if everybody has the same opportunity, because as you said, they all took the same test, both the physical and the written, but just because they were a different whatever it was, they were hired even though they weren't as qualified.
Okay, wait a minute. So I want to clear things up. Anyone who is hired for an air traffic controller has to have the same qualifications. They have to at least hit a certain bar, okay? They have to have the same qualifications. They have a very, very, very rigorous test. They have psychological stuff. They have mental stuff. They have how well they can pay attention. They have age limits. They have all sorts of things that they must pass in order to become a good in order to become a flight controller. The same thing with the military. There's standards on that. Okay, so if you choose to hire a black man for whatever reason, they're gonna have at least the same qualifications as any white man. And what I want to get at is what you're saying might make sense if they chose not to hire anyone because they couldn't find a black man. That would only make sense in that circumstance. As far as I'm aware of, air traffic controllers don't have a problem with black men or women or whatever.
I'm not trying to turn this into that.
Edging out qualified people, and then they will hire no one. They have other problems that cause them to have shortages, and so you're trying to say that they're less qualified, and I'm saying it's the same test, it's the same stuff.
Yeah, but they're not as good.
Okay, we're just throwing that out.
Yes,
you gotta prove that.
Yes, Faz, but you're missing a part in there. What about if the person that is hiring all these people is a big supporter of DEI, and he will shift his feelings to hire a person that probably is less qualified.
Okay, I'm trying to hit at the base of what you both are saying about the less qualified thing. Okay, people aren't,
but it happens every time. It's happening every time as well.
Okay, that's what standard. Hold on a second. People have to meet the same standards. It sounds like what you're saying
is gonna meet the same standards. Yes, people is gonna qualify based on people is gonna qualify.
So it doesn't matter who you hire.
Standard. It doesn't matter. Yeah, of course. But you don't know there is a person behind that. There is a person with feelings as well that is hiring these people. You don't know if that person have preference of hiring more towards to. Oh well, I think this one. I got better feeling with this one, and you don't. And that person would be less qualified for it.
It's funny because last week Titan and I had an argument, and I don't know if it was on FazRadio or not, where he was making a big difference between men and women and how he might skew more toward a man than a woman due to his personal feelings. What I'm saying is, I don't care who you hire or what your feelings are or what your opinions are. They have to meet a certain standard.
Because you think that way.
No, it's not. I think it's demonstrable. It is literally the rules they have to follow.
But you cannot guarantee that everybody's going to think the same way as you.
It's not a thinking thing. It's a standard thing. If you don't meet the standard, you're not going to get hired.
For you.
No, it's not a me thing.
No, hold on. For you, it's a common sense thing. But for a lot of people,
this is a law. No. This is a law. You are not allowed to be an air traffic controller unless you meet certain standards.
But what about the both sides are wrong? The people that is actually
I think what you're trying to say
the law and the people.
I think what you're trying to say. I think what you're trying to say is if the standard says that you must get an 86 on a test, and the person you eventually hire, you're choosing between somebody with an 86 that's black and somebody that has a 92 that's white. You're saying this is what I think you're saying, that the person with a 92 is being passed up in favor for the black man who has an 86. That's what I think you're trying to say.
The country has been running that way the last 4 years. They were hiring people left and right without overpassing.
So what I'm trying to get around here is this whole concept that whoever you hire, whatever method you choose, be it your personal feelings or lies or whatever, you still have to pass a rigorous amount of tests to be in an air traffic controller. You can't get around that. And if you have, I don't care who's there, fails to do a good job, they revisit the tests and make the standards higher. That's how that works. Now, as far as how you choose, that's up to you. I'm talking about whoever you get is still, they're still of exceptional quality. They have to be the best of the best.
That's what we think, yes.
Well, the best of the best is segregated, though. When there's DEI or other profiles or quotas that have to be filled.
Well, we're talking about safety now. Remember, Trump used DEI hire as a reason why the crash happened.
Now, wait a minute, because you might have a minimum standard, but the minimum standard, do you want a bunch of minimally qualified people who got through by the skin of their ass in there just because there's a quota for X, Y, or Z? Or do you want the best qualified, the smartest, and the ones who have demonstrated that they're at the top of their game in that booth?
What I would want is that any fucking human you put in that job has the ability to do the best job that is possible with that job. And that means if they don't meet the standard, that standard should be the best standard that you can have. And the one for air traffic controllers is very rigorous. That's what I'm getting at. You don't want it to be that you could hire some slacker in the job. Okay? So it's a problem with the standard if you're getting less qualified people. Now you could, you also have nepotism and people lying and stuff like that, which could get around that standard. But that's people actively trying to get around it. I get it. Yeah, if you have a black person that makes an 86 and a white person that makes a 92, you certainly want the highest that you can get. I'm arguing for whatever that lowest standard is, better be fucking high enough to where you know that any human in that air traffic control tower is going to save your ass and do as good of a job as you would hope. You want the best of the best for the standard.
The best they can do is that now they have to implement the new technology, possible a very high complex AI system that they're going to implement for pass this test. And if you don't pass, that's it. But I'm pretty sure the AI or whatever system they implement now for safety and regulations, it will fail a lot of people, even the best of the best. I believe so.
So I get what you're going after. You're saying you should always hire the guy with the higher score. Now remember, this comes from a guy.
I will hire the person that has more common sense.
Well,
with a combination of the highest standards.
I'm fine with it if you want the guy with the highest score. Okay, I get it. You want the best that you can possibly get. Forget about the race of the person or the gender or whether they're trans or not. But remember, this DEI hire word is coming from somebody who appoints Fox News personalities as the defense secretary and say that they have a meritocracy. So I want to be clear that if you're going to look for the best of the best, you got to make that minimum standard high enough to where everybody would be proud that somebody met that. That's what, when you join the Marines, isn't the minimum standard something honorable? You're a Marine. Yes. Not anybody can be a Marine.
Exactly.
So Shanrat says, would you hire a top chef to work the kitchen in McDonald's, or is someone with fast food experience maybe a better fit, even though they're not a better cook?
Yeah, that's depend on the levels actually of what kind of position you hire for. Different positions will require different standards.
Podunk Airport versus working at Dallas, where you have many planes.
Yeah, of course, you cannot do those type of comparisons on that. You cannot compare McDonald's versus I don't know. Any Michelin restaurant there? No, obviously you're not going to
school
do
cafeteria.
Yeah.
All right. Wait a minute. You got all, even Shanrat's comment. You're minimalizing the point that I'm trying to make. And if we rephrase Shanrat's comment of would you hire a top chef to work the kitchen at McDonald's, or someone with fast food experience may be a better fit. Okay.
I don't agree with those type of questions. I don't agree with those type of questions because I don't. In my mind, I can't feed that idea to compare those different situations. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So what I'm trying to say here, and the point I'm trying to get across is the way that you have an option of picking those two. What DEI is rephrasing that statement into you cannot hire a top chef because the experienced person in fast food is a they or black or whatever quota or whatever thing there is. You have to hire that person because they are that. That is what DEI is, and that's what quotas are, and that's what I think is wrong. I think Shanrat's statement of having that option to hire whoever you want is the best way to do it. There's qualifications that matter, and they're different, yes, but being forced to hire somebody because of one of those monikers that they have to hire enough of is looking for trouble. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay. I want to back up. So I'm trying to hit your things one at a time. Okay. And I think we need to get somebody on this show who could speak more to DEI stuff, because from what I'm aware of, there aren't quotas. They're illegal to have DEI quotas. However, there's obviously some sort of system that they're using, but it's being portrayed by you right now as a quota. And now, of course, cops will tell you that they don't have quotas at the end of the month, but for some reason, tickets seem to be more people get tickets during that period of time. So I feel like we need to go more into maybe have another episode about DEI rather than summarize it.
I think I can bring that person here to that show.
Okay.
A person that very well, they have a lot of knowledge, very well trained on that.
And you can call it not a quota, but it is a quota because those DEI standards, if you don't hire enough of what DEI requires, you get in trouble. So there is a quota.
I really feel like you're oversimplifying here to a degree of you're really not honoring the subject. And here, Mr. Zorro has just said that he might be able to get somebody on the show who could talk with someone with some real knowledge about this. Okay. I had asked the question, do you think the fact that there's DEI hiring going on with air traffic controllers as a reason for the plane crashing?
And I answered that. I said it could be. We don't know. We don't know where those hires came from.
And I would say we don't know, but I do make it clear that they have to meet the same standards. If you have an air traffic controller in the Washington, D.C. airport, you're going to have higher standards than you would in a podunk airport. Okay. And again, if you manage to get a job in the Washington, D.C. airport, whether you're white, black, man, woman, trans woman, whatever, you're gonna meet that minimum standard to be able to work in Washington, D.C. You would not be able to work anywhere else because there's so much stuff going on. And those standards are set high. So what I want to make clear is all these things are trackable and traceable, and it's I get it. You're saying I like this guy better. You might want to hire somebody because you think that they will work better with the group. That person might be black, you know.
I just don't want to be told that I can't hire somebody because it doesn't meet whatever standard, whether it's a quota or DEI or
and that's something
else.
We both don't know. We both don't know this, but it's portrayed. You tried the less qualified angle first by saying they're not as qualified as white people.
It's not about that, man. It's not about if it's white or black. It's just the standard have to be qualified for any type of color people as long as they're complying with the with the rules, with the minimum requirement. That's it. It's just, and doesn't matter what color the people it is, just as long have common sense and comply with the, certain level of qualification. That's fine.
So General Kazin here says companies got sued for discriminating, so to save themselves legal trouble, they go the DEI way. That's a complicated subject. I think we might need a very specific show for that, because there's a lot of angles to go in here. I was trying to get the point across that a DEI hire, whether it was right or not, or whether they pushed out a more qualified person or not, was plenty qualified to be an air traffic controller. I want to make that clear. It's not that it's airplanes in the United States are one of the most regulated things in the United States, on the planet, because they're so dangerous. When a plane crashes, it takes out people on the ground. When a car crashes, you take out maybe another car. Maybe you'll cause a pileup, but you're not gonna set an entire neighborhood on fire when a 747 crashes into it.
So, of course, while you were talking, I hit our favorite AI up to talk.
Oh, the thing that you accused me of checking. Okay.
Well, it's a Google search, but the AI comes up first, and it says here, for example, the Biden administration has taken steps to end what it considers illegal and immoral discrimination programs, including DEI mandates, policies, and activities throughout the federal government. However, some organizations use diversity quotas as a means to ensure fair representations across various demographics. These DEI actions can be seen as a way to level the playing field and create a more equitable society. For instance, in 2013, it was introduced as the Companies Act, making it mandatory for all publicly listed companies to have at least one woman director. Similarly, some companies have implemented diversity quotas to increase the representation of underrepresented groups, such as Microsoft's pledge to double the number of Black employees in senior leadership by 2025. Now, you can say that isn't a quota, but that's a fucking quota. You can use different words.
Is that going to cause plane crashes?
We're talking about, your question was, did DEI play a role in the crash of the plane? If those quotas are being there, it's possible, yes. And then the discussion turned to when I brought up about the quotas. It's the same thing. And AI agrees with me that it's basically the same thing, but they call it something different. They call it diversity instead of a quota. So no, technically, 100% technically speaking, no, it's not a quota. It's diversity.
So,
but it's the same principle.
This is why, like I said, we need to get somebody on the show who understands this a lot more and can explain it a bit better than they don't treat the AI as if it has a deep fundamental knowledge about how things work on a day-to-day basis or whatever. They're great for giving general knowledge.
Right. And it gave us two examples, tangible examples. So
you do have a point and I have a point, and we need to figure out where the two meet. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not telling you that it's completely wrong. I will tell you it's illegal.
It's not according to that.
Yeah. Like I said,
it's not illegal because
like I said about police and quotas for tickets and stuff like that. Every policeman I've ever talked to has said that they don't have quotas for writing tickets. Yet I hear, there tends to be stings at certain times that pull a lot of people over. And every time they tell me, they just say, well, the boss just wanted us to do it to just make a show of force, to show people that we're watching, which is plausible. Is it a quota? Yes and no.
It's to get revenue. That's what they do it for.
Whatever. But the point is, certainly looks like a quota to me, and that's what I think we need, somebody who knows what they're talking about to help us tease that out.
I think that would be a good show.
Yeah, I think it would too. Okay, I'd like to see if we can. I know it seems like I'm running away from this issue, but we've gone way long. No, and I want to get into AI created art. Do you think we could? You think we won't be able to have two radically different subjects in the show? That might be the problem.
Well, no, we can, but we have to do it every time then and do it differently to be a variety show.
We're gonna have to learn. Yes. Okay. So let's do this so we can influence the algo to get the right people here, get more people here, and we have people that are interested. Now I think I still have something up. I want to share a screen here.
While he's doing that, I'm going to give you some backstory. Ever since Faz started his bugs like 2 years ago, I mean, like really promoting them, he and I have been like two rams on the Serengeti plain, locking horns and fighting about whether or not these things can be copyrighted.
Haven't been locking horns.
Even on the show, we've argued about this ad nauseum, and we did one whole show where we brought up I pulled up the court case on the screen where it said that you cannot copyright stuff that was AI. And we've been going back and forth on this, and we finally, this was just recently, wasn't it? I think it was last month.
They put out this new guidance.
Yeah, it was last month. It was sort of last month, beginning of January, I think it was. And so we were talking, and Mr. Hughes made an appearance talking about the AI again and brought up, hey, the U.S. Patent Office just ruled on this. And so I was like, oh, so before the show, I went over and I pulled this up and I found page 22 is Faz's bugs 100%. And so we were talking about that before the show. So yeah, absolutely. Faz wants to hit this because this is like literally what he does.
Okay. So this is how I make my bugs. Okay. I come up with a drawing and then I use AI to fill in a bunch of other parts of it like this here. So you see, this is my drawing and this is what I want AI to do. Why? Because I have a lot of ideas. It takes a long time to get it done. And making things like this takes a lot of time. So I can get a lot of bugs out with a lot of different designs, and I think it's awesome and people like them. However, there's always been a debate among more than just me and Titan as to what's copyrightable. And past cases before this basically said something along the lines of, if it's different, if it's unique, that you've made it, it's yours. If AI has made it based on a prompt, it is not yours. It is uncopyrightable because a human did not come up with it. Now that follows past law because I think there's an instance where a monkey took a picture of something and somebody tried to profit off this picture, and it turned out that if it wasn't done by a human, they couldn't profit off of it.
That was the case that we pulled up on the show. Yeah.
So the monkey, theoretically, it would be the monkey's copyrighted image, but since monkeys aren't represented in U.S. law, they're not going to be getting any money from that. So it's uncopyrightable. Anyway, so what I do with the bugs is this. The one on the left, completely copyrighted to me. The one on the right, they say apparently the replaced images, such as the background, the human-looking lips, and I'll say even the style of the lines and the flowers would be uncopyrightable.
Well,
however, there's a couple things that are copyrightable. One is the general shape. The thing on the right looks like the one on the left, but obviously it has more stuff added to it. If somebody copied this, even their own way, this is still, the shape would be mine. And that I think is the problem is, and I don't know why courts really don't like the fact that, what if I used an AI to generate each flower? What if I give it examples for each flower? which part is copyrightable and which part is not. And what's that mean?
Yeah, they go into that down in the sections, right? So if what they're saying in this is that with these two images right here on the screen, Faz would very likely be able to copyright both of those images to himself because it wasn't materially changed. The AI didn't create something that wasn't already there. So if that
it created
image,
lifelike.
Created
lifelike lips, for example.
If you read, because there's 2 more pages of text after that. If you read, you have to be explicitly perfect in what you want. So if as an example of what I'm talking about, if the image on the right was exactly the way it was, except it added a second face behind the first one, you would only have what they're deeming as a partial copyright, meaning it would be annotated that you have the copyright to the first face, and that's it. If people used anything other than that face, that's not copyrightable. Also, if let's say you, like Faz likes to layer, he'll take and make 3 AI iterations. That's iteration 1 on the right. Then he'll come up with a new prompt that'll make a second iteration of that one, and then a third iteration of the second one. That's where you start getting into the weeds with this copyright issue, because unless he is exactly specific with his instructions, it's not copyrightable. But if he is explicit and exact in his instructions, he can copyright the whole image. And that's what the Copyright Office is basing that on, because there was a challenge put back in the courts that said, okay, let's say AI did that. That's no different than an artist who draws a picture, puts the picture away, and then comes back, pulls that picture back up 6 months later, and then draws new stuff on it. That's essentially what AI is doing, is just like an artist's brush that changes his original work. So if he's explicit about that, but if he leaves it, the thing is the creativity. That's why they say the human element. If the AI comes up with the creative element that is added to that, you can't copyright it. If you are very specific and say, I want a second face similar to the first, but in a male tone instead of a female tone, and I want blue stars instead of roses, that is fully copyrightable to you. But if you say, create a second image behind the first that is opposite of what's already there, and it creates that face with the stars, you can't copyright it at that point because the AI did the creativity portion of that. Well, does that make sense?
You could say, what if this face had lizard skin? And
that's what I'm saying. That's what they're basing the copyright on, is who made the creative decision to put whatever is added to that there specifically.
Yeah. So as a result, I have largely treated AI pictures as prototypes, because if I were to then to redraw this picture on the right, in fact, if I were to copy this drawing, because it's uncopyrightable, if I were to then make a nice shaded drawing of this myself and use that, as far as I can tell, that would be copyrightable.
Yes, because you were the creative part of that.
And which makes AI really good in art as a prototyping tool and not as the end result. So I still think that this is going to take some time to suss out, because at one time, I mean, you can do similar things with Photoshop. You can pick a brush or you could pick a texture and say, okay, tile the entire screen with that. And you didn't do all that tiling, but it does it automatically. That's fine. That's not something that you might have said, tile this on there, but a lot of art is discovery. So what you're trying to say, it says to me, is if you intended for that shading to be there, well, then that was you making it. But what about all those times?
If you told the AI what type of shading you wanted, according to this article, and that's on page 23, they give the example of that. If you tell it exactly what you want and it does it, you can copyright it. You say create a tiled background and it makes this epic tile background and it created what those tiles look like, you can't copyright it. It's who decides what it is. You have to be ridiculously concise with your instructions to the AI to make it copyrightable.
So my thought is, like Photoshop, where you can run a filter and unexpected results happen, or like when you make photographs, you take a picture on your iPhone of something you didn't plan but happened to happen anyway. You will eventually, after this is mature, you will have copyright to whatever the heck that thing spits out, as long as you have a material direction that you're planning.
That's different. With photos, that's not AI.
Well, it doesn't matter. When you take a picture of the sky, you didn't plan how the sky is going to look.
But that's not AI generating the sky. If the AI generates the sky, you can't copyright that.
Yeah. It's so I guess the fundamental difference is what is there versus what is created.
It's exactly what I said like 3 times. Who created what you're looking at? The AI or you? That's where the line, and they're offering to give you that copyright. You can still have a copyright on the image on the right, but it will be annotated with exactly what portion of it, the original drawing, is copyrighted. The rest of it is not.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting, seeing things in the future, because if you really think about it, like the Marvel movie Civil War used a lot of AI in it, and it needed AI in order to get these characters to do certain things, to get entire armies of independent people moving around. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't explicitly drawn, but rather created by an AI. And that says to me that if you take screen grabs of those things, that you can then make that the picture for your new product, and nobody can sue you. Despite it being Spider-Man and Captain America.
No, you got to take those out.
If you didn't generate it,
you got to take those out. That portion of it will be copyrighted. Captain America and Spider-Man will be copyrighted.
So this is where a lot of artists get in trouble. Actually, a lot of artists get in trouble because they won't copy the main character, but they'll copy like textures from the background.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah, a lot of techno music copies things from the background that might have even been planned. Like I'm thinking of Information Society, where they put Star Trek quotes in their songs. Those were Captain Kirk and Dr. McCoy and Mr. Spock. Why are they all of a sudden able to use that and collect money off of the song?
I'll tell you why. Because the court ruled that it's sampling. If you sample less than 30 seconds of it, you can use it. Now, do they use more than 30 seconds of it? Yes, so they can probably get in trouble. But you can sample up to 30 seconds and not get in trouble for it. Another one, I was working last night. I was working on a project I'm working on last night. Now I put on music in the background.
You're working on a project that you're working on. Got it.
Yeah, I've been working on it for a long time. And so I put on music, and I get like a cool hard style beat, an industrial beat. I'll get something going, and I'm listening to this thing. And I'm like, guys, something sounds like there was a thump, like a pattern in the background. And I couldn't for the life of me figure it out for a while. And I just kept going. After about 30 minutes, I went, That's Combo Christ. They took and slowed down a popular Combo Christ song and put it in the mix of this thing. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. I'm like, I wonder how they're letting this go by, how it gets by the censors at YouTube for copyright infringement.
Well, there's going to be a lot of that going forward. I think with AI, I think it's going to be hard. I think AI is going to have to watermark everything that it does or be required to, because right now it can be hard to tell if something's AI or not. Especially when you talk about shading and stuff like that. And I mean, this is a brave new world. I think you're going to have AI looking through other images just to see if they're compliant. That's crazy.
M Ice, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put the 3 tracks that I listen to a lot on YouTube. I'm going to put them in the FazRadio chat on the Discord. And you guys can listen to the same thing I listen to a lot. But it's weird. Some of this stuff, you can definitely, it takes you a while sometimes to figure it out. And some of these artists, like And a lot of these are from way, way back. So I think my guess would be that these modern mixers take this stuff from way, 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 way back thinking, oh, well, they're not going to realize it, or they're not going to care. They're not around anymore. They're not popular. So I'm not going to get in trouble for it. That would be my guess, because I noticed ever since I started listening to this stuff, I'm like, God, this stuff sounds so familiar. And I can't put my finger on it. Last night, I finally got it after about 45 minutes. I was like, holy shit, wow.
All right. I think we got to wind down here, and I think we should probably give Mr. Zorro the last word here.
He can have the second last word, because I've got to give Zorro some props tonight. He was very passionate with some of his comments tonight. He usually just sits there all chill and throws in his 2 cents every now and then. He was leaning forward. His voice inflection went up.
Until we beat him down.
No, it's just because you use too much standard sometimes.
I loved it, Zorro. I loved it. I was like waiting for the popcorn to show up.
He just wanted you to be on his side.
Listen, I agree sometimes with you. Science is everything, but at the same time,
is real.
It's real. I know. That's why I say science is everything. But there's a reason why we're human and we have souls. There's another part of that.
Well, okay, so when you start talking about human and souls, now you're getting into religion, and nobody ever agrees on religion, even if they have the same, even if they worship the same gods. That is a whole podcast, not even a podcast night. That's a whole podcast on whether God is real, okay? What is God?
You just say that. Anyways, people, use common sense all the time. We want to make you better in this life.
If we do a religion show, we're going to get my kid on here. He's good at that.